Thank you all for being here in the beautiful Lancaster Opera House in the town and village of Lancaster for this town hall meeting. And before we begin, I just want to kind of go through the format. I'm going to do a presentation. It's a presentation on a number of things. We'll be starting off talking about county investments, especially with the American Rescue Plan, going into investments in the community here, Lancaster, Alden, Marilla. Then have a discussion on Medicaid, because it is a hot topic right now for people to understand. We're losing, just sort of popping in. We're how many people in the Lancaster Alden area are Medicaid, and then we'll talk about impact of some of the Trump actions on our community. And then afterwards, we'll open it up for a question and answer. We ask everyone who's interested in asking a question to sign in, so we have a particular list of individuals, and we'll call everybody up who signs in. And then you'll have 2 minutes. 2 minutes to say whatever you want. You can ask a question, you can say whatever you want, but it will be 2 minutes, and then if you're about, your 2 minutes will be up, and we'll go to the next individual at that point. And before we begin, we do have a flag, so I ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Holds the focus.
I know we're joined
Something moves between the
by
camera
our
and the screen.
legislator for this district, Legislator
like
Frank
these on
Darrell.
focus.
Thank you for being here, Legislator Darrell. I did not get a list of the other elected officials, so I apologize if I have not had an opportunity to thank you. But if you are here, thank you, I appreciate it. The town hall meeting is one of the oldest features that we have in our country, dating back to before our country was a country. And this is an interesting time because earlier this week we celebrated the 250th anniversary of Paul Revere's famous ride, as well as the Battle of Lexington and Concord, which really started the American Revolution. And of course, next year is going to be the 250th anniversary of what we consider the birth of our country with regards to the Declaration of Independence. So this is a really interesting time when you think about town hall meetings and everything that's going on. I have a personal belief that as an elected official, you should hold town hall meetings. Every individual in your community that you represent is your boss. So that means I have 950,000 or 954,000 bosses, from the infant that was just born to the oldest senior who may be 100 years or older. And it's important that you hear from your bosses, because those are the individuals who you represent. And when we're accountable to the people. So I think it's important at town hall meetings. This is not my first town hall meeting at the Lancaster Opera House. We had one in 2019. I want to thank the Lancaster Opera House team, including David Bondro, the executive director, and the rest of the Opera House members, including the trustees, for allowing us to be back here once again. I guess we didn't do too much damage last time. But it's good to be here. As I said, I'm going to do this presentation, and then we will open it up for questions afterwards. First, I'm going to start talking about American Rescue Plan. You may have heard a lot about the American Rescue Plan when it was coming out. We heard probably a little bit about it lately with regards to how the city of Buffalo used its American Rescue Plan funding. And we've had a lot of questions as to, well, what did the county do? Did you, like the city, use it to fill holes in your budget? And the answer is no. Erie County received a little less than 178.5 million, 178.4, I think it was 2, of the American Rescue Plan from President Biden. Is called the State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. It could be used to replace lost revenue, like the city of Buffalo did, or respond to public health, economic impacts of the pandemic, but also could be for water, sewer, broadband projects, and any other type of project that would be a normal project that the government would do. So if you did not do something previously, you couldn't spend your money on it, but if you had it, you could spend it for other things. All of the funds must have been obligated. So in other words, had to be under contract, or you have set aside the money and you're saying using it for a specific purpose by the end of 2024. They all have to be spent by 2026. As of the end of 2024, the county had fully obligated all of its funds that it received. A significant portion of it's already been spent, that we'll talk about. But we obligated all our money, and we have it under particular contracts for all kinds of things. So on the list here, you'll see the breakdown in big categories. We call environment planning in our sewers, which received the largest amount because one of the areas we spend the most is in our sewer districts of $128 million. Our parks department got $13.1 million, some of it which was spent here in the town of Lancaster. We'll talk about that. Public Works got $24.7 million. Economic development, workforce development, we invested $6.6 million, and improvements in the health department and public health got $5 million, so our $178.44 million was spent that way. So now we're going to look at environmental planning, and this is the $128 million down in 3 different lines, and we're going to go through this in greater detail right now. So the sewer infrastructure, $64 million was obligated for improvements in the Erie County sewer districts, of which over $56 million had been spent. Now I think this is very important that you understand this, because every one of these projects we're going to talk about, we would have had to do on our own anyway, because our sewer districts were seeing breakdowns in lines, our sewage treatment facilities were reaching lifespan issues. So what we did is we were allowed to do it because we could use it for water and sewer projects. So we said right away, okay, what are water and sewer projects we kind of have on the books that we're going to have to do, but we can pay for it out of the federal dollars rather than having to pay for it out of our own local dollars, because the impact would be so much greater if you have to pay for it out of your own local dollars. So the upgrades include a lot. $18.8 million just on collection system upgrades, which was approximately 60 miles of new pipe was either installed or replaced. Manholes, connections were changed, new collection maintenance system for our central region was updated. $9.4 million for pumping stations upgrade, including the Dubuque pumping station, force main was replaced. If we didn't pay for it out of the American Rescue Plan dollars, it would have had to be paid for by the ratepayers who live in that district. So this saved the ratepayers from having their rates go up. And then various improvements at other pumping stations in the Erie County Sewer District number 4 and 6. Treatment plant upgrades were huge. $3.3 million at the Big Sister Creek water facility in Evans, which is near Bennett Beach. You probably have never seen the sewage treatment facility. You may have seen the entrance to it. It's a big system that handles the southwestern part of the county. 7.8 for Lackawanna, 1.1 for East Aurora, a little less than $1 million for Blaisdell, and then we have $22.7 million for the South Towns Advanced Wastewater Treatment Facility, in which the vast majority of the sewer districts, the end result goes to. So this is the big sewage treatment facility in Woodlawn that when you go on Route 5 along Milestrip Road and make that turn where the circle is, you see the big sewage treatment facility. This is it. So we use $22.7 million of funds for all kinds of work at the facility. This is phase 1 of a multi-phase project, which is actually going to cost in total much more than $100 million. But we used a significant portion of the American Rescue Plan dollars to pay for it. So the South Towns Advanced Wastewater Treatment Facility, we had to do it. We were under a consent order to do it. You've heard about the issue swimming at Woodlawn Beach. Why? Because the final product that's clean goes into Lake Erie. And we were getting overflows in mass rain situations where it would just dump straight in, and that we didn't want, so we're fixing it. We're also doing other types of projects using the funding from the American Rescue Plan. We built a new water tower in Evans for our agricultural park as well as for the town there because the water pressure was very low. In Springville, we replaced the water main on North Central Avenue. In Lancaster, we replaced the Harold Place sewer line, which you can see kind of in the middle. It doesn't look like a lot. You can see it's a trench, there's a person in it, it's a lot of middle photo. It's $212,000 just for that one little project. Akron, we did a project, Tonawanda, we did a project. We also did water and sewer for the Rural Outreach Center, which is now in Aurora, on 16. So we invested across the county. You will note, when you see this, you don't see anything in Buffalo in this because we don't provide sewage treatment facilities in Buffalo. We do it separately. So all the money went outside of Buffalo, not in the city of Buffalo. Parks, we also took some, we'll talk more about parks, but we took some what we call general infrastructure, We used the funding from the American Rescue Plan for the Island Park Enhancement Project, which we just kicked off earlier this week. Just started, so it's a zero complete. Miracle League upgrade in Grand Island is 50% complete. Homestead South Park, we give the money to Homestead, not the City of Buffalo, for work at both South Park and MLK Park. And then the Botanical Gardens expansion. The county owns the Botanical Gardens. We own it, we work with a third party, the Buffalo Botanical Gardens Association, which actually manages it. It's a not-for-profit. So they manage the Botanical Gardens, but we own it. And there's a big expansion project in which we contribute now over $7 million, but at that point we used $5 million from the American Rescue Plan Fund. Big issue is housing. We have, like the rest of the country, we have an affordable housing issue. There's just not enough housing that's being built, especially on the affordable level. This is not limited to Erie County. It's not limited to Eastern Erie County. It's the whole country that has an affordable housing issue. So we announced a couple of big projects with regards to using American Rescue Plan funds. $13.5 million for infill single-family housing, which will be owner-occupied, building new homes on vacant lots. It's actually going to be more than 40. Buffalo and Lancaster and Erie are looking at Tonawanda. It's modular and stick-built homes. Groundbreaking that just happened in the last week and a half. And we're in discussions about adding lots in additional municipalities. These will be sold. The county will do a subsidy under this, but it will be sold, and then we take the money that we get back and we reinvest it and build more homes. But the nice thing about it is it will require the owner, they can't just flip it. They can't, hey, I got a subsidy, now I'm going to sell it and make a lot of money on it. They can't. You're going to be required to live in at least 15 years, probably 20 years, just hammering out those final details. But they're going to have to keep it affordable. They can't just go out there and try to sell it and flip it and get a brand new house. So we had the groundbreaking, as you see at the bottom of the screen. This past week in Buffalo. We just did a ribbon cutting in Lackawanna for an affordable house that we built in the last year. And that's the modular house that we did the ribbon cutting for. It's not a mobile home, but it's a modular home. It's actually built in pieces off-site, and then it's trucked and constructed and put together. Really neat to watch it. And this is a two-story home. If you walked up to it, you would not have any idea that it was brought in by trucks as a modular home because of how they do it. And it saves money. It actually saves roughly $80,000 to $100,000 per unit by doing it modular, so that allows us to invest in more homes. We also provided $6.5 million, so $20 million in total. $13.5 million for single-family homes and $6.5 million to support multifamily rental property projects, which are going to be affordable in nature across all of Erie County. It's going to, thankfully, our $6.5 million total, but the $6.5 million from the county helped leverage over approximately $340 million of private sector investment, which will create over 750 units across the region. There's two pictures there. One's in Chickamauga, where the old Polish Villa was in Harlem. Remember that? Well, that's coming down. That's actually coming down. That area was bought, and the developer is putting up a Harlem Villa. How do they call it? Now, when we talk about affordable, this is not what people think of like Section 8 housing. This is housing that is at an 80% median income, so it's not the lowest. It's a higher value, but it's also giving people who may not have an opportunity to buy a new home or live in a new apartment an opportunity to do it because it's at a lower value cost, I should say. But our $6.5 million leveraged $340 million to create basically 750 new units that are going to be going online in the next year. ErieNet, you heard a lot about ErieNet in the last few years. Well, the construction is ongoing. We're actually putting the wires down as we speak across the county. We used $34 million of the ARPA funds to build a 400-mile network of middle mile. So it doesn't connect the main system with your house, but it connects the main system across the whole county. And then final mile providers can provide the internet in your neighborhoods. We've had contacts and talks with final mile providers who are interested. Because depending where you are, you might have Verizon, you might have Spectrum, or you might have Spectrum and nothing else, or you may have nothing, because there are parts of the county which don't have access to high-speed internet. So we invested $34 million in a mile open access system, which we just did the, we initially called ribbon cutting, but we started putting the cable up in the town of Boston. And by the end of this year, I shouldn't say all, the vast majority of the system will be complete. We're anticipating flipping it on, switching it on, getting a high-speed internet by the end of the fall. And it's connecting governments too. So it's going to give all governments basically the best, fastest, high-speed internet at an extremely low cost. So the town of Lancaster, the village of Lancaster, the town of Erie, the town of Alden, village of Alden, they'll all be able to tap into the system and then get their internet at much reduced cost. And it's going to provide competition overall that doesn't necessarily exist. It's been fought by Spectrum. Not as much by Verizon, but a little bit. Why? They don't want competition. They don't want competition in the system, which then will require them to drive down their costs. So we feel very confident that when this is all in place, not only will we be delivering high-speed internet to parts of the county that had it, but it will reduce overall costs. Funds invested in parks as a result of the American Rescue Plan. 13 million, of which we're going to talk about. This is in addition to the investments we've done otherwise. Expanded capital program. DPW and Parks work together at Parks Roads and Parks parking lots, as well as Went Beach Sewer, where it kind of breaks it down here. There's two pictures right here of Erie Park showing some work we did in Erie. But here, the $2.7 million, these are all the projects we got done in $2.7 million. And you see at the top there, the first one we actually got complete was restoration of the Como Lake Park Lighthouse. And then we also have the Como Lake Casino improvements. I didn't say at the beginning, but I spent a lot of time in my life in Lancaster. My mother graduated in Lancaster. I won't say what year, because she did math, so you can figure out how old she is. But my mother graduated in Lancaster, and my grandparents lived in Lancaster, and it was basically the desk for my entire life. 237 semesters. We used to come here. Sunday was guaranteed. We drove to my grandparents' house, the market down in Lancaster. The TV would be on, and of course I'd be bored out of my board because it would be Lawrence Welk on television. And 60 Minutes, I'm like, I don't want to watch this. And like, no, we're going to your grandparents. And the money, and the food. Things like that. That was not my entire life growing up. And my cousins and I used to ride our bikes around. My Aunt Linda lived in one apartment across the street, in one of the buildings, like in the little blocks of twin villages. So I spent a lot of time in Lancaster. So I never seen my family. And so that's why one of the reasons I like coming here is really town hall meeting in Lancaster. So if I don't ever have to watch Lawrence Welk again. So these are some of the projects that we did using the American Rescue Plan Fund. Of course, the casino improvements at Como Lake, as well as at Ellicott Creek Park, the restoration of the historic lighthouse. And on Grover Cleveland, Ellen Reynolds, we did work. We did improvements at Seneca Bluffs, Front Beach, Akron Falls. There really isn't any part of our park system that wasn't touched by American Rescue Plan Fund. But if you think about it, especially the historic parks, like Como, Chestnut Ridge, Akron Falls, Ellicott Creek, in Emory. Those parks are considered our historic parks. Those are the ones that actually were created 100 years ago. This year is the 100th anniversary of the opening of the Erie County Park System. Last year was the 100th anniversary of the creation of the park commissioners and stuff like that. But this is the first year we actually opened the parks. And in the 1930s, they had huge investment under Franklin Roosevelt's Road Progress Administration. You probably see some of the signs still on the building, built in 1947, 1933, Road Progress Administration. And so we took a lot of the things that had been invested in by the federal government almost 100 years ago, and we reinvested in them so that they last another 100 years. That's the wonderful thing about parks, is that they're not just for today, they're for tomorrow. We're stewards of our parks. We have to invest in our parks, not just for today, but so that people who aren't even born yet get an opportunity to enjoy them 60, 70 years from now, as we do. One of the best examples of that is our forest. I don't know how you understand, we have a forest. We have a forest in southern Erie County. It's got multiple forestry lots. And that was planted in the 1920s and the 1930s by our forefathers who understood, and foremothers, that they're not going to really benefit from forest, but they think it's appropriate for the county to have forest. for people to enjoy for environmental purposes as well as potentially for timber. And that's been there since then. And we need to continue with that thought that we're going to invest in things today, not just for today, but so that people can enjoy them in the future. Expanded capital program, there's a lot that was done, especially with rent mansions going on. The Shank House, it's the oldest extant stone building in the city of Buffalo. It's the original farmhouse of the Shank family. It's on the Grover Cleveland Golf Course website. It's also on the website. But it was at risk of being demolished. It was in terrible shape. And we used the funding to help save that. And now it's going to be headquarters for our Parks Office and our Parks Museum. So on the first floor, we get all this good memorabilia and things from our Parks Department. And our Parks Commissioner, Troy Shinza, is here in the back. Commissioner Shinza, for being here. But we're going to put that on display. We're going to allow people to not only see it, but they eventually over time use the room as a community room and things like that. So we invested in the Shank House. We invested in Chestnut Ridge Bridge on the parking lot, in the Went Beach parking lot. Not only just redoing the parking lots, but making them ADA compliant. We have a beautiful inclusive playground now at Chestnut Ridge, which is especially great. And we have one inclusive playground as well at Como, wonderful playgrounds. But if you have a kid in a wheelchair and the parking lot's bad and you don't have access to the inclusive playground, you might not be able to get there. So these parking lots are now redone in the roads and they were made so they're ADA compliant. And then we invested in the Department of Parks, $24.7 million, almost $25 million. Convention center facade, new highway barn, which we'll talk about very soon. Overlay, which is $5 million of additional work we put into the roads. Micro grid downtown to create a better system for the county. The Sandridge water tower replacement needed to be replaced. ECC roof, mechanical, that all came out for 20, a little less than 25. We went downtown, we saw the change to the convention center. We've actually gotten more conventions because of the work that we've done on just making it newer and nicer. The original plan was to build a new convention center, which would cost at least $450 million. That's the estimate in 2019, and we know the cost is going up dramatically. We said, we're not going to build a new convention center at this point. Let's take what we have and make it better. So we used American Rescue Plans for that. Nice new highway barn. It's built in the town of Lancaster. The highway barn previously with clearance, it was in bad shape. Actually, we had to pull out function because it was in really bad shape. It dated back in 150 years. It was at one point a manufacturing site. And we built a new highway barn here in the town, $5 million, and it's just about ready to be open. So our highway district that we used to call the Clarence Highway District is now going to be the Lancaster Highway District, and the trucks will be based out of there as they moved out in the district. There's $5 million. $5 million additional dollars in the roads. There's only so much that we can do on an annual basis because of our season. Every now and then I'll run into somebody and it's like, why aren't our roads like Florida and South Carolina and Georgia? Like, well, as soon as we don't get as much snow and we have the same amount of snow as they do and cold, then our roads will be like that. But when you have the freeze-thaw cycle, your roads do great. It happens. And we did $5 million extra when we put it into the roads pretty much last year. In addition to the plans that we already had. But like I would like to be able to do 12 months worth of road work, but you really can't. You pretty much have 5 to 6 months at most because of our weather. And the asphalt plant's not open until April. So this is the ARPA overview. 100% of our funds were allocated and are spent on projects. None of it is going into revenue replacement. None of it is going to cope or fix holes in our budgets. All going into projects or has been spent on projects. Every municipality will benefit. I have to give a shout out to the former president and our former congressman because they supported this. We would not have had that money without it. If they were here, they'd say thank you. So I'm going to talk about some recent investments that are outside of the ARPA scope that we've done in the town of Lancaster, village of Lancaster. But the county has contributed $57,000 towards the purchase of a new senior van for the Lancaster Senior Center, $60,000 for the senior center for kitchen and exercise improvements, new HVAC system, new sanitizer. So that all went into the town senior center. The town owns the building. And we didn't have an obligation to do that, but we used our community development block grant allocation to do that. These are investments in the village that were recently done, $201,000 on pedestrian safety and striped bike lanes. The vast majority of this money actually for pedestrian safety, which are the new pedestrian sidewalks that go towards the street. They've all been built, as well as the issue with the traffic circle, so that you have, you see it now, it's more ADA compliance if someone's in a wheelchair, where they have trouble walking. It's not just a straight down slope or it's a step. $150,000 for ADA improvements on Aurora Street. The new playground on West Gilliard Park, or West Gilliard Park Playground received $95,000, which went towards the playground. In Dubuque, we had $165,000 for the West Dawson Park playground improvements, $109,000 or so for HVAC new system at the senior center, and then sidewalk replacements. Sidewalks are very expensive. The county has no responsibility for sidewalks. Sidewalks are the responsibility of the underlying government, the town or village. We don't own any sidewalks. What we did as part of our allocation, decided that over a 3-year period, that there was going to be sidewalk improvements in the villages of the few, and we received almost $700,000. Alden Town Village was $122,000, which went for new furniture and equipment at the expanded Alden Senior Center. You see $92,000 to replace the senior center roof, $250,000 to reconstruct Elm Street and sidewalks. This is, if it was not provided out of the community development block grant fund from the county, it would have been done anyway, and it would have been paid for by the locals. We're part of a consortium, 34 governments, in which the towns, the villages, some of them were part of it. Chickawawa's not part of it. Amherst is not part of it. The city of Buffalo's not part of it, because they get their own community development block grant funding from the federal government. We created a consortium in which we then, on an annual basis, the leaders of this community make a determination of where the money's going to go. And we split it up among all the places. We try to be fair. One community might not get something in a particular year, but that means they're probably going to get funds in a different year. So this is all part of those programs. Town of Marilla, $35,000 for kitchen improvements and $91,000 for ADA improvements and installation of an elevator at the Marilla Town Hall. So we do these investments. Supervisor Morrell and I don't always get along. We're not best friends, but we talk to each other when we see. Just because we don't always get along politically doesn't mean we're going to ignore them and not do projects in the community. We still do projects in the community. So we also have a housing rehab program for rehab of homes and mobile homes. And it's a very specified program. It's a 0% loan to qualified homeowners with no payment until the house is sold or transferred. So the homeowners in Lancaster, Town Village, Dubuque Village, all of the Town Village, Marilla, these are the number of homeowners who were able to do work on mobile homes in their house. They basically get a 0% loan that they don't have to pay back until they sell the house. So this is a program that I'm sure a lot of you don't even know exists. It does exist. And it comes out of our funding from the county and distributes it all over the county. And then finally, the program investments, rural transit. The Rural Transit Service receives on average $270,000 annually to provide transportation for seniors and others at risk from low-income households across the whole county. But it's primarily in the southern and eastern part of the county. So it does impact the towns of Lancaster, Monroe, Clarence, and Houston in this section here, all in Acton as well. But we provide $270,000 of community development block grant funds. We're still waiting to get our final allocation of community development block grant funds for the next year. There's been massive cuts at PUD. We've been told our allocation is not going to go up, but we're probably not going to get cut. We're still waiting for it. We don't know. The allocation is important because it pays for programs like this. So we're waiting to see. But we know there's been massive cuts for PUD. But we've been told this might not be effective. We just don't know. Erie County Arts and Cultural Funding, we know probably we provide a substantial amount of operating assistance on an annual basis to organizations like the Poloncarz House. But we also decided in 23 and 24 to set aside money to help small and medium-sized organizations with their capital needs. We've done big projects for the zoo. We've done big projects for the AKG gallery downtown, the history. But we weren't doing and assisting smaller organizations. And we know they have needs. Capital needs are important. You can provide them operating hours, but that doesn't mean you fix the hole in the roof. So here's two big ones that were done here with regards to the one-room schoolhouse, obviously new in town, and a new ramp that was created to make it ADA accessible, as well as reconstructing a threshing barn for Hull House. There used to be a threshing barn there, it was torn down. They bought the period fight threshing barn in Finger Lakes and removed it and reconstructed it here. So part of the Hull House experience, you can see what Mr. Hull went through, a Revolutionary War veteran who served under George Washington, and he moved his family here, and how he had a threshing barn with fresh wheat. So that was all part of the funding. And then, of course, we provided a significant capital grant to the Lancaster ARPA House for new HVAC, which you were here earlier, it was working very well because it was pretty cold in there. And masonry repairs, this is one of the great buildings in our community, and we don't want to lose these buildings, so we invested in HVAC so that they can actually use it 24 hours, but 365 days a year, because they normally shut down during the summer, late spring, summer, to early fall, because it was unbearably hot. Now they don't have to, they can use it for community events throughout the whole year. So we provided significant funding for the Opera House. And then we have other programs that we work with the town and villages on. Municipal planning grants. Three counties provided planning grants, as you see in the colors here. Those are all based by years. Green is 2021 and 24. Light blue 22, 23. So we provided municipal planning grants to assist these communities. Some have received them recently. Pretty much everyone has done a municipal plan type of program in the past. We may not have done in the last 5 years. We provide direct funding from Erie County for municipal planning grants. Big thing that we've done is Erie County Storefront Revitalization Program. We took $15 million of the surplus that we had. Hopefully this one's better. Ooh, my voice is $15 million in the Erie County Storefront Revitalization Program. We've done hundreds and hundreds of businesses. We've assisted them. They could get up to a $40,000 grant to improve their storefronts, fix a roof, things like that. There's the total Lancaster, Newstead, Acton, Clarence, Alden, Hugh, Elma, Marilla. So just in this picture, this corner of Erie County here, the square, did 78 locations in round 1, 34 in round 2. And here's some of the, what it looks like. So here's the before and after on Two Guys Pizza in Lancaster. Here's the Alden Pet Shop. Balance Meats, this is a really nice one. Came out very well. It's next door to us here on Central Avenue. Bloomsbury Lane Toy Shop. Woo! Everybody likes toasters. This is Kodiak Jackson Marilla. Why did we do this? Well, coming out of the pandemic, we knew small businesses were having difficulties. And we wanted to give them an opportunity to do investments in their business. And some of these, they doubled it, they put their own money in, not just the county money. But by doing this, improving the storefronts, you get more foot traffic. You get more foot traffic, you get more people coming in and shopping and going to these locations. And there's benefits to the county in the long run, because if there's more shopping, generate more sales tax. So the $40,000 up to per location was millions of dollars invested countywide in every community, everyone. City of Buffalo, Grand Island, to Concord, to Branch and south, western part of the county, you name it. Every community had a storefront, or multiple ones that actually got assistance. So we look at it as it strengthens small businesses that were hurting following the pandemic. It gave them an opportunity to invest in their business. And as I say, there's a tremendous amount of what they've done just in this corner alone. I want to thank the legislature for the support of this. Legislator Frank Darwin and the other legislators. This was unanimous. There was no question on this one. We felt that this was necessary. But it's made a big difference. We've heard from a lot of these store owners that business owners that it's transformed their business. They wanted to do something, but they didn't have the money to do it. Because a small business owner, We're just trying to keep the business afloat, we're trying to keep the employees paid. We want to do a work, but we can't necessarily invest in it. So we were able to help them. And Where's Pippa's
Yeah,
Farm,
just go get the
Nola?
listen.
That's a big, they did a really good job with that. Very noticeable. They're in the corner of the body transit, but now you really see it when you drive by. Erie County Agriculture and Farmland Protection Plan update. We're in the process of doing that. It's going to be released next month. We have significant farmland that is across the county. People think of Erie County and they often think of Buffalo, but as you know, it's not just Buffalo. It's 3 total cities and 25 towns and the villages. And significant portions of Erie County are agricultural in nature. And we have a farmland protection plan that we're working on and we're releasing next month. Working with the farm community on that. Farming is a very important portion in agriculture of our business, our economic system. So if we lose our family farms, we lose our farms, we hurt our economy. So we're continuing to invest and ensure that we protect farmland. So that's a lot of things that we've invested in. I want to talk about Medicaid recipients because I think you've heard a lot about Medicaid and the proposed cuts that are coming. We know they're coming. They'll be released on the 29th. We don't know exactly when. I want you to understand that Medicaid is not just a signature. It is all over the country. So Medicaid is a national program, but it's administered at the local level by the counties. And we do have a significant amount of money that we put in annually, over $200 million directly from Medicaid spend. And then we're providing another $50 or $70 million to assist our uninsured individuals and ECMC to pay for indigent care. It's all part of the Medicaid formula. But it provides a variety of access to the public health programs, it serves all kinds of age groups. Its financial eligibility is determined by the income and resources. For most people in Erie County, I should say, the majority of Erie County residents, they do not have a lot of Medicaid. But they might some. In Erie County, in 2023, we don't have final 2024 data, I'm expecting it at the beginning of next month. But there were 342,000 residents who were enrolled in Medicaid. It's 36% of our total population. 29% were birth to 18, so a little less than 30% of all Medicaid recipients were children. 59% were 21 to 64, and 12% were 65 and older. Now, the amount of Medicaid recipients has gone up. We're expecting it to actually go down when we get the next set of numbers. What happened as part of the pandemic is the federal government of New York State said, once somebody's enrolled on Medicaid, during the pandemic, you cannot cut them off. And that technically went through 2023. We've been doing reevaluations of individuals. And so now that number is expected to drop. I wouldn't expect it to drop below 300,000. It was about 300,000 beforehand. Why is it 300,000 and not a lower amount? Well, it's also the expansion of the Affordable Care Act. People will qualify for Medicaid under the expansion of the Affordable Care Act. So somebody who's working, a lot of the people are 342,000 that are the 59% that are 21 to 64. Almost all of them are working. Not everyone, but almost all of them. They have disabilities. But almost all of them are working. And they're in there because they don't have health insurance, they can't afford health insurance, and they've gotten through the expansion of the Affordable Care. This is how much money was spent in Erie County in 2023 on Medicaid. That is $2,997,057,908.96. So of those 30, this total here, 342,000, $2.3 billion is spent. Now look at the averages by age. It's very important. The average is a little less than $4,000 for a child. It costs that much. Provide health care, free health care for a child. A little less than $10,000 for adults. Then it shoots up to $18,000. We'll talk about that for 65 and older. Here's Lancaster, the end of 23, in the 14086 zip code. There were 5,217 enrolled Medicaid recipients, of which 1,328 are between the ages of birth and 18. A little over 3,000 are adults, 19 to 64, and 866 were seniors, of which we spent $46 million in Lancaster.
You may not think about it, but Medicaid is also an economic driver, paying doctors, paying dentists, paying nursing homes. It is an economic driver in communities, of which the spend in Lancaster was actually higher than the average countywide, a little bit more with regards to children and adults, and right around on seniors, the average. And now look at Alden, so take a look at that, we're 3,639 Medicaid recipients in Alden, which is a fairly sizable percentage of the population, of which 1,073 were children, 2,200 were adults, and 346 were seniors. And notice the big difference between the Alden average and the seniors. It's only 6,000 and the Lancaster average. Anybody gather a reason why? Nursing homes. Medicaid is the primary provider for anybody in a nursing home. Medicare does not pay for nursing homes. Medicaid does. What does Alden not have? They don't have a nursing home facility. What does Lancaster have a few of? There are nursing facilities and assisted living facilities in Lancaster, right on Broadway. So that's why you see this big increase on average for seniors, countywide 18,000 average in Lancaster, but only 6,000 because of the seniors that are living in Alden that are on Medicaid, they're probably not in the nursing home. They're getting traditional health care. So on average, it's lower in Alden, but that's not necessarily because they will be healthier. It's just because we don't have the seniors in nursing homes like we do in Lancaster. Because that's what a big portion of the money that's spent on Medicaid is spent to pay for nursing homes. No other government service pays for it. And as you all probably know, it's almost impossible to get private pay health insurance for Medicaid because it's so expensive. So Medicaid funds nursing care. And that's why you could be very healthy and have had various health care your whole life, but then you need nursing care. And you could be on Medicaid. It doesn't mean you're a bad person, it doesn't mean you didn't work. Because pretty much everybody who's a senior who's receiving Medicaid has worked their entire life. But it just means you need nursing care and you cannot afford to pay it otherwise because it's so expensive. And the average of nursing care is now $18,000 a year. It's going to cost more than $100,000 and now maybe more than $200,000 a year to pay nursing care on average in Erie County. I want to talk about recent federal actions impacting Erie County. Trump administration refused to fund senior RSVP program or DEI. I want to talk about DEI. A lot of people don't know what DEI is. But you want to know what DEI is? It's putting the inclusive playground in Como. Because now we allow our handicapped children in wheelchairs and so forth to take advantage of the merry-go-round. It's ensuring that we have those sidewalks that allow individuals, rather than just traditional curb cuts, to be able to cross the street. That's what diversity, equity, and inclusion is when it comes to the county, when it comes to others. It's not we're going to choose somebody for a job just because of the color of their skin. It's not the case. But the Trump administration came out and said you can't have any more DEI than anything. So we said we have this great program, RSVP, Retired Senior Volunteer Program, in which thousands of seniors volunteer their time, but they have to have like coordinators to keep track of this and also make certain the food banking work counts and the volunteers, okay, we've got some that are doing the program. So it was basically $100,000 a year. It was a 3-year contract. We were in year 2, so this year, next year, so it's about $200,000 in total. We took them to court. Said this is wrong. You can't change the contract midstream. And I'm not going to say we're not going to have DEI because we're still going to do inclusive playgrounds. We're still going to do curb cuts that for seniors and those that are handicapped. So we took them to court. They gave up. They said, we're going to go back to the old system. We're going to strip the provisions that say you can't have DEI. So we won. Now people are like, oh, you wasted tens of thousands of dollars. We got one bill for $80,000. And they saved a $100,000 contract this year and a $100,000 contract next year. Otherwise, we would have lost the contract. So I will admit that we spent some money on it, but it was a pittance compared to ensuring that we could continue to get the retired senior volunteer program. So they came back and they said, we're not going to enforce it. We're going to give you a new contract, which is exactly the same as the contract you had last year. We're not going to have those provisions. So we agreed at that point, okay, you take me through your word, we'll withdraw the lawsuit, without prejudice, which means if by chance they come back and say, no, we're not gonna give that contract, or we can refile it, but we won't. We aid the public health and addiction services. Some of this stuff is probably, but $300 million cut to New York for disease prevention, outbreak response, addiction recovery services, and mental health services. As part of those cuts, New York State eliminated statewide public health care. This will lead to cuts in 7 programs. It's done. We just lost the funding, grant funding. We included jobs. We're not going to pay the jobs out of our own. Epidemiology, tuberculosis control, food access programs, communication, environmental health, emergency preparedness, addiction services, and crime. We're still going to provide addiction services in our reduction. We're just not going to have anything. We're still going to deal with epidemiology, but we're just not going to have anything people do it because they're a cop. Sounds like this thing's keep on going anyhow. Which is probably not a problem for here, we are live streaming this and we'll be live streaming everything. So these are cuts that affect the county. Cut to plant trees across the county. People are like, why do you plant trees? Well, it was a $13.4 million U.S. Forest grant, which will be paid out over 6 years. And it was for the city of Buffalo, Erie County, and Lancaster. It was the only other town that actually was part of the grant. But it was to plant trees in areas of low to no tree canopy, provide work opportunities for incarcerated people, and also create new fruit tree orchards to fight hunger in our county. We're going to create fruit tree orchards in our parks. And then we're going to take the apples and the peaches and pears and things like that, and we're going to give it to food banks. So that was eliminated as part of an emergency executive order the President signed on January 20th. The tree grant was eliminated even though it was congressionally approved. It's kind of in limbo right now. The people who were associated with the grant are gone, the tree grant is gone, but we can vote and light on that. So right now, we're over the assumption it's over. Cuts to research negatively impact Erie and Roswell Park. They're going to that. You see, there's about $26 billion worth of direct costs for research, while $9 billion worth of indirect costs. So the NIH is administrative overhead. I talked to one of the professors, this gentleman from University of Buffalo and Roswell Park. I said, well, what's administrative overhead? And he goes, what administrative overhead is? We use radioactive materials when we do our tests. We have to pay for the proper storage of that radioactive material. That's part of our administrative overhead cost. Because it's not a direct cost associated with the research. It's an indirect cost because it's a result of the research. So that's tough. So UB's thinking they'll lose $47 million over the next 3 years, and Roswell Park will lose $12 million annually. I mean, this hurts us all because we're talking about cancer research and health research. So in the end, this is going to have an impact on the other. Here's a big one that was just announced recently, and it has an effect locally. The Trump administration cut $1 billion for food, of which they cut $1 billion, and they canceled another $500 million. $1 billion was for purchasing fresh food for food banks, schools, and child care centers that provide meals, which pretty much are all centers. And then they canceled another $500 million in already approved funding for what's called the Emergency Food Assistance Program, or TFAP, which helps food banks and other emergency food providers. So locally, Freeport Western New York has received a $3.5 million cut. They are a food bank provider. They also provide the fresh foods and on-site preparation for our Meals and Wheels program. So they have $3.5 million of cuts, which is 2.1 million pounds of fresh food that are not going to go to food banks, that are not going to go into our Meals and Wheels cuts. So now the county's got to make a determination: do we have the money to pay for that? If this is going to impact the Meals on Wheels program, we're not going to be able to serve as many meals for seniors. Do we have to come up with the money? Or are we just saying, no, we just can't serve as many seniors? Or we charge more than the $3.50 for a meal if we go to a congregate care program where we ask for Meals on Wheels, but they don't have to. People don't have to pay. And a lot of people who go to the congregate care dining program or Meals on Wheels, which is part of the senior dining program, it's all part of it. Some people pay. They always pay the $3.50 for every meal, but not everyone can. They don't. If they don't say, you don't get a meal, we go back the next day and get a meal if they need a meal. So we're losing $3.5 million for more out of the $500 million that was cut with a DFAC program. The organization, which was completely eliminated by the Trump administration, is called the Commodity Credit Corporation. It does not sound sexy. Nobody knows what the heck it does. The Commodity Credit Corporation is the organization that funded this because what they did, they talk about commodities, they talk about food commodities and how food, fresh food is part of the commodity system. We wouldn't do it, so that's one. And then, of course, cuts or the tariffs against Canada are certainly hurting our economy. The traffic over the pre-streets is dropping precipitously. It was 13% for February. Across the northern border, it's up to 31% drop. Canadians coming across the borders. We did have a sales tax decrease. Thankfully, we now see a slight increase. I'm not so much worried about sales tax as I was before. We are seeing a drop in Canadians coming across, which is going to hurt long-term sales tax. It's going to hurt our hotel tax. But the nice thing that you need to know about when you talk about sales taxes is it just doesn't hurt the county. This county, in an 8.75% sales tax that's generated, the first 4% goes to New York State. The 4.75% is considered the local share. Anybody got an estimate on how much of that Erie County keeps by percentage? No, a lot more than that. It's 52. The other 48% is shared with every city, every town, every village, and every school district. Now, I've always laughed at this whenever you see someone announce that their budget increased, but they're not increasing their tax levy. People like scratching their heads and say, well, their budget increased, how are they paying for it? They're almost always paying for it because they got an increase in their sales tax a lot for the year. And it can be significant. It's millions and millions of dollars that each municipality could receive. So the sales tax is helping to pay for schools, it's helping to pay for towns and villages, as well as cities. And most people don't realize it. So when the sales tax is impacted, it affects us all. And then it will be cut. You just don't know how much. Because it's been announced that the budget, the committee that oversees Medicaid has to find $880 billion in cuts in Medicaid over a 10-year period, or $88 billion a year. Here's the kicker. They've said, and it's true, we have not cut Medicaid. The answer is they haven't yet, but they're going to. And it's going to probably come out on the 29th is what we've been told, the plan. Because if they cut, that committee that oversees Medicaid in Congress, cut every other program it oversees, it would only obtain 40% of the cuts it needs to reach its budget target. So, on an annual basis, if they cut every other program, which they're not going to do, they're not going to eliminate every other program that's under the budget committee, but if they did, they'd still have to cut somewhere in the vicinity of $50+ million annually in Medicaid. So the Kaiser Family Foundation did this chart here because it's a nonpartisan organization. It's well respected by Democrats, Republicans, Independents. It just looks at health. So it did an analysis to say if we cut Medicaid by $88 billion a year, that $88 billion is equivalent to 18% for seniors and people with disabilities. It's also the equivalent, which is 3 million seniors. 18% of seniors, 38% of the adults. But $88 billion annually pays for the equivalent of 76% of the children on Medicaid. Remember how small the Medicaid portion was? It was really small for children. So it's going to get cut. There's no doubt it's going to get cut. Everyone knows it's going to get cut. There's a reason why congressional representatives are not holding town hall meetings on this, because they don't want to talk about it. But we won't find out how much in the impact until the 29th is what we've been told. Because on the 29th, they have to report back and say, here's how we plan on cutting. So there are going to be cuts. We just don't know how. And we don't know the impact. But it's going to be large. It's going to be impactful. And here's the gist of it. If they cut that, now the question is, does New York State have to say, okay, we're going to continue the program as is? but we're gonna have to pay for it, the county's gonna have to pay more? Certainly we hope not, because we do not have the money to do that. Remember, I showed you, Medicaid, we spent in 2023, almost $3 billion in total for all the Medicaid services in the county. And the county pays a little more than $200 million right now. It's gonna take genius to divide it by 25% to realize that's a lot of money that has to be either put in or they strip people, they just knock people off the system. And Social Security, there's been no cuts to Social Security benefits that we're really aware of, or some people have been eliminated, that now have to fight to try to get back on, but they've cut the service portion of Social Security. You used to be able to call Social Security Administration if you had a problem. You can't do that anymore. They eliminated it all. So now you gotta go to an office, which there are Social Security offices locally, but that's not easy for everyone. Or you do it on the internet. And my mom is somewhat tech savvy, but I was just at her house last week trying to solve a problem because she couldn't figure out something with a computer and a printer, just connecting them together. And I can imagine there's a lot of seniors there who, while they use the computer, they don't want to have to go online to contact Social Security to deal with a problem with their benefits. So, yeah, when you caught the behind the scenes things, you impact the overall service. Remember what happened with the red green fiscal crisis in Erie County? And the service cuts that impacted the delivery of services in our community. They were keeping the parks open. We got nobody basically to cut grass, and everything go in the pot to go there. The library, massive cuts to the library. But, yeah, we're not going to invest in the libraries. We're not going to be open for a couple of hours. That's what this stuff is. And for the Q&A, why is this being done? It's being done, in my eyes, to give tax cuts to billionaires. There's no real reason to do this. There's no real reason to slash Medicaid. We have a Medicaid Inspector General's office in Erie County. And we have investigators that go to see if there's Medicaid fraud. And we go after those individuals. It's not like we're not doing that. Pretty much everyone else is as well. So the hypocrisy which should impact people. If you're going to cut programs like the Commodity Credit Corporation, now you've impacted food banks and people who don't have anywhere else really to turn for food. It's the last place it was open. And I can tell you, there are food banks in every part of our community. There's food banks in the city of Buffalo, there's food banks in the suburbs, there's food banks in the rural areas. When I was in Genesee County last week, they were worried about their cuts to their local food bank. These are the kind of cuts that are going on. I was the county controller. I was the taxpayer watchdog. We set up the whistleblower hotline. That was done in my administration. And I know what it's like to go after waste, fraud, and abuse. But slashing the community credit corporation, Commodity Credit Corporation, is not waste, fraud, and abuse. Slashing these programs is not waste, fraud, and abuse. You can have a difference of opinion on the policy. I agree with it. We live in a democratic society, a constitutional republic, and we're not going to agree on it. We can have a disagreement on policy. But when something's been approved by Congress, it just can't be eliminated. It has to go through the congressional process. If you disagree, then negotiate it, discuss it. Just don't wipe it out and say that it's all waste, fraud, and abuse, because it's not. I'll finish one thing. Remember when Doge came out and said they found 150-year-olds, 140-year-olds receiving Social Security. That's not true. It's because the tech gurus and geniuses who are all these young whippersnappers don't understand the COBOL system from the 1970s that the Social Security Administration still uses. So they wiped people off that they thought were 150 years old. It was a coding system. It wasn't their age. And so people now have to go back to Social Security saying, I didn't get my check. But they can't call anymore because the phones are down. They got to go in person or they got to do it online. That's not waste, fraud, and abuse. That's just dumb. Because Social Security is a deferred benefit. Medicare is a deferred benefit. We all put our money into it. From our first job, I remember my first paycheck. I was like, what the heck are all these lines? And we've been paying for it ever since, and we continue to do it. Because we have a social contract with regards to social security. We have a social contract with regards to Medicaid. We have a social contract on Medicaid that we're going to take care of our least fortunate in our community, especially our seniors during their dying years, so they're not dying alone at home because they can't afford health care. That's the stuff that's being cut. That's not waste product use. It's just vindictive and it's mean. And I'm going to continue this out. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David Bojanowski. We have a list of individuals who signed up. Everybody who signed up is going to be given an opportunity to speak. You have 2 minutes. David has a little bell there, so once you hit your 2 minutes, it will hit the ringer, it'll be up. You can ask a question, you can make a comment, whatever you want. This is not going to be a back and forth. I'm not going to get in a back and forth fight. But if you have information that you want from us, we'll be glad to give it to you as best as we can. If we can't, we will get back to you. So give us a phone number or email address. We'll also get back to you with the information. And if you don't believe us, ask the people that were in the town of Concord. Because we did one of these in the town of Concord. It was very good, very respectful. And if we could not answer the question that night, we took information from the individual and we got back to them about specifics that they may have that just can't answer at this time or something else. So Dave.
Okay. Hello, everybody. So, as the county executive said, we're going to allow you 2 minutes to come up here, right to the stand here. Any comments that you'd like, ask any questions that you'd like. Like I said, come on right up here, welcome like right here. 2 minutes is the max. You're going to hear this sound in 2 minutes. At that point, we'll ask you to head back to your seat, allow the county executive to respond. And without further ado, we're going to start with Michael L. Yeah, we'll call you up one at a time. That's okay.
Okay, thanks, Mark. I have a question for you. I know we talked about William Street, West Transit, all the way to Rome. I got 2 boys in college that come, and their cars are getting destroyed every day. There's a parade like Moore Street, down at Bowling. There's cars riding on the wrong side of the street. I myself almost have a 2-head-on trying to avoid cars, and we avoiding potholes. I was told 2026 till William Street's going to be improved. Something's got to be done before that. There's no sidewalks there, there's no lighting. Also, I'd like to ask you about Seabird in Lancaster. It goes for 2 years for the culvert. I live in a development behind there. I can't use Lake Avenue, it's destroyed. It hasn't been fixed. It's recently just got patched up. I can't have to go around Seabird because that's been closed for 2 years. And I can't take William Street down to Bowling because there's craters all along that road. We're driving 50, 60, 70,000 cars. And we're supposed to pay inspections, but why are the roads that bad? A main thoroughfare has to be addressed before. Okay? And can I keep going? Yeah. Thank you. The other thing I'd like to ask is, as far as the cars that we've broken into, this is happening all across Erie County and Lancaster. Myself, my cars were broken into. I fell asleep for 13, 14-hour shifts in a row. Fell asleep wrapping Christmas presents. I got my wallet, $1,000, $1,500 worth of clothes in the back seat. Destroyed my car as long as the whole street is still in good. It's happening day in and day out in this county. What is being done to stop this? Candy Hope doesn't have a policy. These kids go to court and get a parent's ticket and they're let out. It happens every day. We cheat the law up. Lancaster has no chase policy anymore. It's got to stop. I got 2 boys in college. They don't want to stay here. They went out. First chance they did, they're out. 9%. We get the highest electric bills around here. Mine is more than double in Lancaster. I'm paying $405 over the last 5-6 months. It's ridiculous. It's got to stop, Mark. And last note, I'm finished. The illegals, how much are we spending on illegals? We're afraid to fix the roads and fix the problem.
We're not paying for it.
You let them in.
Sir.
So we're not moving back to work. But the county did not pay for the hotels that those individuals were in. They were paid for by New York City, so they're in contracts through an organization called DOCO. That was ended. The individuals either went back to New York City or are elsewhere. I don't know where they are. But the county did not pay for them. And we can go through this repeatedly, and I know the legislator from Darrow and others asked that. We did look at it and show we're not paying for it. The only thing the county did, depending on those individuals, if needed, was through a Department of Health, we did health checkups to see if they actually had any issues that we needed to address. But we did not pay for the housing, we did not pay for the real estate. William Street is slated for a massive reconstruction in 2026, but we're concerned the state may push that back here. I'm going to bring up my Department of Public Works Commissioner, Bill Erie. He's really thrilled right now. Look, there's been a lot of pushback, of course, to widening the road. We want to widen the road. So what we've come up with is a plan to create a center passing lane. So it makes it easier so you don't have to back up just because one person wants to turn left off the road. But to do that, we have to take some land, all the land along the side, which is now mostly culverts, and requires us to basically put permanent drainage sewers underneath. Very, very expensive. And we're waiting for New York State to get back with us on some information. We're hoping it'll be included in the transportation program, which is called the TIP, for 26, but we don't know if that's going to happen. So I don't want to say the work is going to be done in 26. And then you can answer, that's a town road.
William Street is, it's under design right now. There'll be a summer public hearing here in town on Lancaster. Again, we'll have those leads and publishing that on our website as well as New York City DOT. We just transferred that in March, $1 million for the purchase of some of those properties and easements and roadways along William Street. And the biggest problem with William Street is the right of way that is 49.5 feet. It's a 3-rod road as opposed to 30 or some of the others that are 66 feet long. So with that, we have, that's why I have the 2 lane road and all the developments that are not really necessary, we pull off the William Street. So the 2 lane road is in-base and will be a mixed portion of both sidewalks, curbs, street lighting, which will be included in that. The public hearing, that's where we can build southwest and construction for the county. With the tip, that's federal money, so 80% of that project is funded by federal money, 20% will be from the county, and it's probably in excess of $2 million or $2.5 million.
I don't want to, so if you have any more questions, we'd be glad to talk about it afterwards.
Sir, we're not going to go back and do back and forth. Can we talk to that?
We need to fill in the potholes and stuff like that. We can do that at hot hatch. But we're not going to do a complete mill and overlay and rip it up. Put 4 inches of new blacktop down just to then rip that off in a couple of years. So we can do that.
Okay, next up we have Greg S.
Thank you for coming tonight to Lancaster. I've been a lifelong resident. I wanted to read your quote. I will not refrain from calling out undemocratic and un-American actions. Much of your presentation was about the investments Erie County has made into the community, the stimulus money from the federal government in response to COVID. Erie County received more than $250 million from the federal government. You talked a lot about how transformational this money was, but failed to mention how political it also was. You moved more than $170 million of the funds into a program you called Renew and asked the legislation to pass it. You announced the funding at a press conference with all the Democrats, and our Republican legislators weren't invited or even aware. Later, it was reported that you worked with Democrats in the legislature to plan for the spending of the funds, giving them each a budget for their districts. And you intentionally left out Republicans out of the process. You're here now to brag about the work you did, but how do you respond to the criticisms that you intentionally treated our community differently than others? By differently, I mean worse, in a way that might violate our federal rights and equal representation under the law.
Thank you, Greg. For those who don't know, Greg is the chair of the Republican Party in Lancaster. Which is fine. This is really nice opinion. You're not going to agree on everything. That's fine. But the Renew plan was only a partially amount that came from the federal government. It also came from funding that we received that we did not anticipate receiving upon the ending of the pandemic, including the surplus. We have invested in all communities. The reason why I showed that stuff there. is I want people to know that we do invest significant dollars across the entire community. I've been accused of not spending any money in Republican towns, and that's just not the case. When we were down in Concord last week, or 2 weeks ago, I mean, I had people come up to me afterwards saying, I had no idea that those projects that were town or village projects, down in Concord Village or Springfield, actually had all that funding paid for by the county. So, yeah, because that's what happens. But I want people to understand that we do make significant investments. We've made significant investments on roads. We're announcing a major road package for this year very soon. We've got it all set. We're going to be spending $48 million on roads. And one of the areas that's a big component of that is it's not a big component. I say it's a component of that is we're doing a complete mill and overlay of Urban Boulevard from Dick to Transit. If you've driven down George Urban, you'll see each one. So that's actually part of what we call our overlay. We just bid out, and that's going to be starting in the next about a month and a half. Overlay 8.
About a month and a half.
Okay. So that's, I think Colvin is in there, George Urban is in there, as well as, but that's just a small component of $48 million. I was looking earlier on my phone at just the cost of these projects, and some of them are just, it's a lot. So, but there was, I think it's the Two Rod Road Bridge. It's not a long bridge, it's about what, 35, 40 feet? It cost $1.9 million to do that one 30-foot bridge. That's how expensive these projects are. And we're investing in it. We're doing it this year. It's going to be constructed later this year. The full program is going to get announced in approximately a week or so. We're just dotting a couple I's, sending T's, and then we'll send it to the legislature. With regards to the contracts and things like that. Some of that they've already seen because they approved it as part of the capital plan. But I looked at all. And, it's funny because I get criticism from some on the right saying, you don't work with us. Okay? I've also heard from criticism from some of my friends on the left who say, why are you working with the Republicans? You're in the middle, actually not that. That's where I feel I am, because we spread our wealth of the county investments across the whole county.
Okay, moving on to Marine B next. Marine B. Oh. What is it? I'm sorry. Mark B. Yes, tell me your last name, I'm sorry. That's you. Sorry about that.
Kind of, somebody's Mark, I can kind of see that really quickly.
We keep the Poloncarz on the regard, Councilman Lancaster. Before I get in, I will say Seabird is sitting on the desk of the DOT, would be the bachelor attack, and wait will be paid this summer. Also, I want to thank you for everything you've done for the town, bringing the monies in for projects that we really appreciate. My question is, legislator Frank Cadaro supported a measure to cap tax on gas. That measure required bipartisan support, and in order to get it passed, there was an expiration date on it. The gas tax cap has expired. Do you support renewal of the gas tax cap? If not, no.
Well, I supported the initial gas tax cap because we thought we'd see a savings. And what ended up happening is we didn't see the savings. The way the cap works is you cap it at a particular dollar amount. So you couldn't do sales tax about $3 a gallon. And at one point, I remember it was $4 for that. So what we saw is you have a cap, okay, you tax it up to a certain point. And then above that, you wouldn't see any more sales tax. So we figured with this gas cap, or the cap of the gas tax, and sales tax, that we would then see a requisite drop in the price of gas. But we didn't. What ended up happening is the tax is paid not at the retailer level. it's paid at the wholesaler level. So the mobile, the whatever station it is, they buy it, the wholesaler, and they pick the price based on the amount. What we saw was where we did the gas tax cap, we thought, oh, we're going to see probably, based on our estimates, a 7, 8 cents, maybe 11 cents reduction. The prices didn't go down. What we think happened is the retailers pocketed the savings because they were selling it, let's say, at $3.80 one day. Then they could have sold it at $3.70, $3.68, $3.72 the next day, and the price didn't go down. So where did that savings go to? It didn't go to the people we wanted it to, ourselves. We think it was a bonus to the retailers. And so we looked at it, we did the analysis, and when the extension came, I said, I don't see a reason to do this because there's no savings that are materializing for our community. And it's sales tax, so it's not just Erie County that benefits from it, it's everyone, all the municipalities, town, Lancaster, Receipt, County, Village, Lancaster School District, all get that. So if we reduce the sales tax, cap it, we're only hurting ourselves. Now, the price of gas has dropped, which is good. And now the wholesale price is definitely under $3 a gallon right now. The retail price in some places is less than $3 a gallon. So even if we capped it, we wouldn't see any savings right now at this point. We're talking about capping it at $3 a gallon. But I just decided, why give the retailers this extra money? Because that's what happened. And if they had passed the savings along, then I would have said this makes sense, but they wouldn't. And you know what happened? When the gas sales tax cap ended, did we see the prices go up? No. They pretty much stayed exactly where they were. And they should have gone up if they had not been pocketed. But the price didn't go up. And so afterwards, we were talking amongst ourselves in the budget office saying, because we get through our Erie County Office of Consumer Protection, they do the analysis on these things because they're also part of the Weights and Measures Division. So when you go to a gas station, see a little stick around gas pumps, it says it's tested. We guarantee you get a gallon of gas, which is a whole other thing because there's sometimes a wrong there, selling a little less. There was one, I felt really bad for the retailer. We did the test and found out what the said was a gallon, turned out the other was getting a gallon and a half. So whoever went to that retailer was getting the benefit. But so we could go out there and we do these analysis and then we see the prices, because we just record the prices. And we could see on X day, it was $3.75 a gallon. Who paid the tax expired, the cap expired. It should go up. The next day, the day after that, the day after that, the day after that, it was the same. So that's what I did.
All right, moving on to Blake G.
Also, I want to thank everyone for being here. You could be at home watching the Sabres in the playoffs. It hurts me.
Okay, you mentioned you had another town hall at Concord, right, around March 26th?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, roughly. Yeah, that's when you said that Hochul was the best friend, rough quote, Hochul was the best friend any CO has ever had.
No,
Well,
that's not what I said.
okay,
I'll
what
let
is,
you know.
all right, well, here's the thing. All of us heard that. All 2,000 of us heard that you said that. And I watched you about talking about Medicaid and everything like that and fighting for it. I lost my job while I was on FMLA for my mom who has dementia. At the same time, my health care was illegally taken from me. So let's just all fight for it if we're gonna fight for it, for everybody, and not just some people who are on one side or the other. And what are we doing about Collins?
First off, I'm sorry about the crowd. That was a situation that got out of hand on both sides.
Just listen to which part of it.
I did say at Concord, I said, of the 3 leaders, and it was properly reported in the Buffalo News, I said, of the 3 leaders in state government, between the state assembly speaker, the majority leader of the state senate, and the governor. Of those three, the best friend the correction officer had before was the governor. I'm not saying you feel that you have a legitimate reason to feel the way that you do today. But of the three, because when it came to the assembly and the senate, I think you agree with all of us, they didn't really care what was happening. No. I mean, I've been in Albany a lot. I saw a lot of, I go there to talk about issues with county government, to advocate on behalf of counties in general. And there's a lot of always protests and speakers going on. And the Albany Assembly leaders are controlled primarily by New York City. And in some ways the senators as well, the leadership in the Democratic Party. And of the three, the governor was the best one. I'm not saying she didn't mean that. That's what I said.
She never won.
So,
She never won.
of the three. So, and then with
Sorry,
regards,
just one more thing,
with
we'd like to
regards to
respond.
your position, I mean, we'd be glad you can talk to us in county government. And I don't know if I can do anything with regards to the issue associated with the job. We did accept applications now from individuals who were terminated. They are capable of applying for county positions. Which means you are capable of applying for county positions. If there's a job that's available that you qualify for, you hire it. The other one was the third one? Oh, Collins. So the Collins facility is at risk. I am very concerned. They're finalizing the budget right now, and the governor's proposes cutting 5 more prisons in New York State, primarily because of issues associated with the declining prison population. There's all kinds of other issues that we know about that result in the strike. But they moved the inmates out of Collins, and that scares me. Because once they moved them out of Collins to other facilities in New York State, they realized maybe we don't need Collins anymore. And that's what I'm worried about. Why I talked to the governor and others about, I want to keep that facility open, because it is one of the primary employers in southwestern Erie County. And we've already lost the Wanda facility now. So I am concerned. I have talked to state reps about it. I don't know what the final result's going to be. The only thing I can do is advocate, other people can advocate. So I would suggest you talk to some of the members and senators and let them know if it's this district, it's Assemblymember Chapinski, and Beckell. So you should talk to them. And Pat, if anybody has a better understanding of it more than any, because he was a state trooper in the so I would suggest you do that. I mean, I can talk to, and I have talked to the governor, and she knows how I feel about it. She said, Mark, if the budget goes as planned, we're going to cut 5. I don't know this one. But I am worried that that's going to be one of the chopping blocks, as well as others, because when they moved the inmates out, and they did during the strike, and they moved them to other facilities, that also shows maybe that facility is necessary.
All right, we're going to move on to Donald P.
I'm sorry if I'm walking through, because it's a lot of light here, so I can't really see you as I walk over.
You refuse to allow 12 and 13-year-olds to hunt deer with firearms. Is this going to change in the future?
Thank you for the question. This is a legitimate issue, because it was passed by the legislature, but not in the real proof majority. Let me give you a little background. I come from a hunting family. I do not hunt myself. My father hunts, my brother hunts. Grandfather's hunting. I know it's important to all of this. I also, as county executive, see child traffickers. And unfortunately, I am the chair of the legislature. I only see child traffickers. Which are child reports, child thefts, accidents, disease, abuse, many child lives. And I was saying to myself, if I had an opportunity to potentially prevent a child from dying, I'm going to do it. And I coached hockey for 10 years, including 12, 13-year-olds, 14, 15-year-olds. And just watching them made me realize I don't know in my own eyes if I feel that these 12 and 13-year-olds should have a shotgun away from them. Because I watch them and they're kids, they're still babies.
Did you read this one?
I've received the information. I have.
So obviously you were
Well-
probably want to speak to groups of any that are.
I will just say that in my administration, I do not plan on signing it. If the legislature passes it, and they can override or veto, or they can, if I veto and they override, it will come along, because that's how we do things. But right now, there's not enough votes. Or they do not have enough votes in the legislature to get the veto majority. And so, it's my personal feeling. And I still get the child death reports. And I'm glad most people don't have to do the child death reports, because they're horrible. And I remember when I first came in the office, we had a problem with child protective services and children who were needy. I'll be found on the mountain, eating books. They didn't want to submit. Who knows about everything? Because I read about the deaths and the horror. And so in my eyes, I looked at it and I said, I don't think the children are mature enough to handle them. I know that some people are angry. I understand it. That's the democracy we have. And I can understand that. But in my own view, I always said if I have an opportunity to prevent a child from dying, even if it's an accidental death, I'm going to take that. And that's what I do.
All right, moving on to David R.
Come to line, Chief. Thanks for coming. We get a shipment up every 4 years or so, and I'd like to. You're right. This wouldn't happen in my band. So
We're using the equipment from here, so I guess they're gonna probably ask us for more money than we want.
and thanks, I think that the legislature investment here, we really appreciate it. Your job, the hard one, the fiduciary report is really good. And I think what in Lancaster, what we see with you over a long time is you're a very staunch, well-trained Democrat. You stick to the platform of the Democrats. And you're pretty close to the governor and her platform. And quite frankly, we have a different outlook of how our government should be run. And, it's a little bit more conservative point of view, and you're far left, you're a little social.
Let them ask the question, any comments, it's fine. They don't have to agree on everything. That's the beauty of American democracy and republic. Because we have a First Amendment right to voice our opinions. We don't have to agree with it.
Thank you very much, Mark, I appreciate it. And indeed, you don't have to agree with it. You have to respect each other's opinion. And this is an opinion in the town and the village of Lancaster. Please, sir, why we do not support you. Thank you.
I will just note that, as I said earlier, whether you supports me politically, I live in a town or a village, doesn't mean that we're going to not invest in our communities. But I still represent everyone. I represent, that's why I do not represent taxpayers. I don't represent taxpayers. I represent people. I represent from the youngest child who was just born to the oldest adult. You know who are taxpayers? You often hear, oh, I represent taxpayers. Corporations are taxpayers. I don't represent corporations. I represent people. And we can have differences of opinion. I mean, we can difference of opinion in a number of things. I'm very proud of our record of managing the county's finances. Because if you remember what the finances were like beforehand, they were very poorly run. We now have the highest credit rating we've ever had in county government, AA. We have the lowest tax rate we've ever had. The county does not set assessments. Assessments are set at the town and village levels. So we have no control over the assessments. The only thing we control is the tax rate. We have had small levy growth on an annual basis. And some people say you should have no levy growth. That's what happened in the city of Buffalo. They had no levy growth for 10 years. Now they got a $75 million deficit or greater because they didn't have a 2% tax increase on the levy on an annual basis. So we can disagree on the policy. but I will always stand for your right to tell me I'm wrong. But I can also at the same time say, I disagree with you. But that's the beauty of our country. And that's what we need to keep. One more final thing on that. I will say one thing about First Amendment right of free speech. And it was when there were protests and people were driving around with Confederate flags on their cars. And I said, you know what? You have the First Amendment right to have a Confederate flag on your car. It also gives me the right, First Amendment right to call you a ding dong. And other things I wanted to call them, but I disagree with them on this topic. So yes, fly your flag, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to call you a ding dong.
All right, moving on.
I didn't call you a ding dong.
All right, we're going to move
Hopefully you don't
on
have a Confederate flag.
to Ryan T. Sir.
What I said, is David, right? Yes, what I did say you had a Confederate flag. What I said, which other people here will testify online, and the reporter will probably confirm, is that during COVID, when there were protests, people drove around with Confederate flags on their trucks and cars. And I said, I'll protect the First Amendment right to fly that flag, but then it gives me a First Amendment right to call them ding dong. Because I disagree with their flying a Confederate flag. I did not say you don't. I think
Hey, excuse me. Bam.
the next person,
Ryan T, please.
Ryan T, I believe.
All right, we're going to go on to Wayne G next. Wayne G.
I have been called Bruce.
Thank you again for coming tonight. My family and I are benefactors and advocates for the arts and culture in Erie County. Our grandchildren use the Lancaster Library on a regular basis. I visit the Buffalo Museum of Science and Tiffany's Museum on a regular basis. I'm actually a family employee of the Buffalo Museum of Science and Tiffany's Museum. And I put my time and effort in my mouth with that volunteer at both places for Canada and Florida. I just wanted to thank you for your support for the cultural institutions, for our libraries, and also for our parks. These are things that are available to all citizens, regardless of political affiliation, regardless of income level, and these are important for our quality of life. I want to thank you for supporting them and ask you to continue to support them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, I appreciate that. You made it relax, you said quality of life. And that's what it's about when you're supporting cultural institutions and libraries. There's libraries across the nation now that are really at risk because of cuts from the federal museum and library service funding for them, but we're not going to see that locally because we support our libraries. It's a dedicated line of tax levy, which is dedicated for a lot of great library systems. Our park system is incredible. I like to call the parks the people's country clubs. My father was a steel worker, my mother was a nurse. We didn't have a broken silver spoon, I broke a steel spoon. I didn't know what a country club was. Well, I knew Chestnut Park, and Emory Park, and Poloncarz Park. And so I remember some of the greatest times during my youth with my family lived in parks. And if we're not investing in them, we're letting them degrade, because unfortunately we're in prior administrations, then we're doing a disservice not only to ourselves, but people who invested in them in the past, and the future generations. That's why we put money in parks. We put money in a lot of things, because we want to invest in the quality of life. And you hit on two of those. We hear it a lot when people come to our community, move into our community from another area. And they go, I just can't believe the quality of life today, the things that you have. You hear it from businesses. Sometimes just talking to people about the Buffalo, because all they think about is snow. But when they're here, they don't want to leave because they realize the quality of life. And that's why we invest in it. And it's something I will always do as county executive. And this is my last term. I'm not running. I've announced that, I'm not running. Some of my family feels the same way. But I hope whoever follows me will invest in a community with quality of life.
All right, moving on to Gavin O.
Good evening. My name is Evan O'Brien. I'm a trustee here in the village. Welcome to our little village. Welcome back. The village of Lancaster has a strong track record in applying for and receiving grants. And we're very good at implementing them. If you love to come over to this building, you can see one of our projects, beautiful, vibrant West Main Street. There's a lot of uncertainty from the federal government. We touched on it a little bit already tonight. And it can be tough to plan for the future, especially when the government is eager to pull back these grants while they're being implemented sometimes. We experienced that issue with the USDA forestry grant. Here we are ordering trees, planning for the spring planting season, and we're told that funding is cut. What advice can you offer us as a village and other grant recipients as far as navigating this uncertainty and planning for that future?
Thank you for your service, because I know public service is not easy. First off, you need to fight for the current dollars, but if you've got grants you haven't received yet, which you've applied for, from the federal government, I would not expect to get it. So don't start pre-spending money. But if you have, we have seen in situations where they said they cut the grant in the last few months, and we're not probably getting money in the future. But we are putting in a reimbursable funds for the money that's already spent, and they are reimbursables. So if you have incurred grants on the tree grant, for example, you should be submitting them. You may get repaid. It's still questionable, but we are seeing some repayments in those areas. And the village has done a tremendous job. The state grants, the forward grant, just look at the village, and it has done a tremendous job. And it takes a lot of effort. I give a shout out to the trustees of the village. I give a shout out to the village and the board on the town, because if you go around and see other communities that are not doing after these grants and doing this type of work, it's a noticeable difference between what you're seeing in the village of Springville or what you're seeing in the village of Lancaster, of course, in what village of Angola is seeking, and some of these other communities, compared to those that are not going after these grants, because they're making a tremendous difference in just the look of these communities. And if you make your downtown centers vibrant, businesses will come. All you gotta do is look at what's happening here on Central Avenue in Broadway. Businesses are coming because they're investing in the community. When businesses come, people want to move there. It's the quality of life issues. I'm very proud. One of the first things I was actually able to get involved in as county executive was community development block grant funding to demolish the old building on the other side of Main Street here that was blocking further development. True story. So we get there, it's mostly a brick building, and there's like a little wooden area. And so we celebrate, we're demolishing this. And they give us a sledgehammer. Hit that area, but don't hit the other area, because it's solid brick. So we hit it, smash it, yeah. The former legislator, Terry McCracken, says, I'm going to hit that other area. And he remembers legislator Terry McCracken, so he takes a sledgehammer, wham! It literally was like when Wile E. Coyote got hit with the anvil from the Roadrunner. Because he went, wham, and he saw him roll like this back. True story. It was one of the first things that happened in my administration. And I talked to Terry afterwards, and I said, are you okay? He said, I don't think so. I'm sure that he hurt back. But that's an example of how community development block grants, support from the county, work from the village can make a difference. Because if you remember what the village looked like, it wasn't bad. But that whole section of there was destitute. It was gone. Nobody. Like businesses there, and there was that big old wall that was there from the old Wilson's building or whatever it was. So that's why you invest in communities. And lo and behold, here we are, a little more than a decade later, and we have this incredible, vibrant business sector, people wanting to live in the village, and it's a testament to all the people who are involved. So keep fighting for the dollars. You might get them, And if you are applying for future grants, just understand there's going to be a lot less.
All right, moving on to Tom A.
Mark, thank you for coming to Lancaster. We appreciate it. You had spoke earlier about accountability for your island. Exactly, accountability is super important, especially as an elected official. The other part of accountability, which I think is great, is the transparency that you show with spending. Everybody wants to know what taxpayer dollars are being spent. I think it's super important to show. But along with accountability, I think something that's super important is accountability to the facts. And part of that is the response. The hot button topic that we talked about a couple times as far as Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Nobody wants to see anybody lose any of those benefits that they earn in the day for, and I agree with you on that. However, it's important to be honest about that. And the cuts that you mentioned are a little bit deceptive. No one is losing Social Security. No one is going to lose Medicaid and Medicare. Are the cuts being made? Yes. The accounting error that you mentioned, or the coding error, that was a coding error. That's all can be seen on the website. You can go to Social Security, you can go to the Department of Government Efficiency. You can see all of the accountability. 7 million people did lose Social Security benefits. Those 7 million people were over 120 years old and didn't exist. So that kind of stuff is important. When you're going to talk about that kind of stuff, is Medicaid and Medicare probably going to be cut? Yeah, because there's people that were receiving those benefits that funding is going to that weren't even living in the country. So accountability to the facts is important, because if you deceive people, you lose credibility for all the good things that you did as well.
Okay, moving on to Sarah M.
We're going to try to get through everyone. Like I said, we originally did it for you, but it's past the movie. We started getting on, so we signed up.
Hi. First, I just wanted to thank you and congratulations on your successful lawsuit against the Trump administration. I know it was just announced today, so I don't know if you've had time to kind of look at it. The NIH does plan to use data from the centers for Medicare and Medicaid, as well as from private companies to gain access to patient data. This is going to, it would otherwise be private patient information. They also are then planning to use some of this information to create a registry to track autistic people. So I am a mom to 2 autistic kids. I'm also a nurse. So this is sounding like a lot of HIPAA violations, both from the federal and state standpoint. Just at a county level, what is, if anything, do you think that there's anything you can do to ensure the safety of these people?
I did see the story. It's pretty disgusting to think that the federal government is going to register individuals based on their health condition. Because if they do it for autism, who says they don't do it for diabetes? Who says they don't do it for hypertension? It's wrong. That's why we have HIPAA. So the only people who have access to your health are the individuals that you choose because they're in the health care. On the county level, short of them trying to access our data, which we could fight, I'm not certain there's anything I can do on this situation here. The lawsuit we filed against AmeriCorps, which is the popular name, but there's a whole different name that nobody recognizes, was because it was a direct contract that affected county government. So we weren't a aggrieved party, as the law would call it. So we could file that suit. With the NIH stuff, I'm not certain if we could. Unless they tried, they came to Erie County and they said, we want your Medicaid data on your recipients, which we actually have. Because the county has a Medicaid program, and so we do have access to, through our Medicaid Inspector General's office, individualized data, but we never release it. It would be a HIPAA violation, the county could be subject to massive fines. But we do use it for aggregate information. So we know how much was spent on average in the town and things like that. I think it's uncalled for. It's un-American if we're creating these registries of individuals based on their particular individual healthcare issues. Because I say, where do they stop? when do they stop? Do they say, okay, we're just gonna do autism? No, we're now gonna move it on to a different illness. Or a different, I don't wanna call autism, illness, it's a very good illness. Neurodivergent, it's a collection. And just, the autism spectrum is so varied. An individual who could be autistic might still also be able to have a very productive life with family and kids and serve our country and things like that, but they still have on the spectrum. So I look at it as our government should be in the business of ensuring that people have health care. Our government should not be in the business of knowing what are the afflictions and everything about people and putting them on a registry. Because then who knows what that's used for? And I think that's wrong.
To Tom S. Tom S.
All right. All right, thank you, Mark. Thanks for being here in Lancaster, and I also want to express a big thank you. You and I, a couple of years ago, walked through the community center with Audrey Hamrick and Mr. Stoll, and we worked on a strategy, partnered with Lancaster Opera House. We were able to open that community center up because of the guidance you gave us in September, a couple of years ago. We got the ribbon on that in September, and we were able to open that center up before Audrey passed away. It was a dream, a vision. That was a big deal, so thank you for that commitment. Also, thank you for the commitment of the storefront revitalization program across the street. I'm doing a lot of work in the village of Lancaster with the village board and so many other folks that we're bringing this community back. So very excited about that. My question, one concern we have is recently the town of Lancaster board has cut vital funding for the Pew Lancaster Boys and Girls Club in our community. This organization serves our youth, our families in this community, the most in need among us. Is there any guidance that you can give us to connect an organization like that, or any of our other organizations, to be able to go after funding from the town?
Well, I'm sorry to hear about the funds. We definitely have a program, a cultural funding program to assist various type of organizations, including Boys and Girls Club. I see in the back, Dan Castle, Commissioner of Environment Planning and Deputy Commissioner Thomas Baines. Raise your hand. I'd recommend you talk with them, Tom, because they can tell you how the application process goes. I think you're in Francisco. You also talk to us tomorrow. And I want to thank you for mentioning Audrey Hamrick. Audrey, she was a bulldog. There was nothing that mattered more to her in those final years of her life than ensuring that the community center got off the ground. And we were taking a walk through originally. I remember I did a walk through about 2 years ago. I remember the site originally, and I was like, "Are you sure you want this, Audrey?" It was in really rough shape. I wish they kept the ball. But she was a dream, and I'm glad she got to live to see her dream come true. There's still a little more work that needs to be done there, but it's an example of just how a couple people can make a huge difference. That was an abandoned for decades. It had been basically abandoned. And she believed that they needed a community center, talked about why they needed a community center, talked about why they needed to have washers and dryers in there and a kitchen. She made it a reality, and she may not be with us anymore, but the village is a huge value.
Thank you again for coming and sending us first of the time, Mr. Poloncarz. The past 4 administrations, this government portion of the past 4 administrations illustrated that mandatory entitlement program, mandatory expenditure of defined source entitlement programs is unsustainable as they're currently structured. For instance, an excerpt from former President Obama's administration states this is the Office of Public Debt, the Systematic Public Debt. It says, and I quote, "The government financial policies whose programs are currently structured are unsustainable.
without challenges, spending on Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid would permanently dramatically increase the government budget deficit and debt, leading eventually to a new financial and economic instability, such as we are heading to page 7 to talk about demographic shifts due to medical technology, people live longer, and unfortunately, we feel like 50 million potential workers, which changes the overall ratio between paid, people are paying into and recipients. Compounding the increasing structural challenges that are undermining the sustainability of the long-term employment programs is things like this fraud and abuse. So a report under the previous administration from the Government Accountability Office that was entitled Federal Government Made $236 billion in proper payments last fiscal year, that was on March 26, 2024, illustrated of that $186 billion was due to wasteful and abuse of Medicare, Medicaid, pandemic unemployment insurance, and earned income tax credit. It is that kind of wasteful and abuse that President Trump has cited he is looking to reduce and subsequently ensure the financial sustainability of Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid onto his White House website in March 11. So my question to you is, how do you resolve the difference between the information you cited on official government reports and some of the information you cited on your presentation from third-party entities like the Kaiser Foundation?
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you for being here. That's what I had time already. I'm all in favor of Kaiser's programs. That's what we did as in the Controller's Office, as we do through the Medicaid Inspector General's Office. It's not as much as people think it is part of the programs. But I'm in favor of it. I'm against what DOJ is doing, which is these categorical complexity areas that are not based on use of the column. Now, you can bring up a good point, especially about Social Security, that if we are in the current system, we'll run out of funding, and I think it's about a decade. So the issue is how do you address it? And it's going to have to be addressed. That's why I support ensuring that we do not extend tax cuts to Elon Musk and their billionaires. They should carry it. We all pay, but it comes to a point when you're so wealthy and you're making so much money that you're not getting taxed on it anymore. And they should be paying their fair share. And we are the only industrialized modern nation, basically, in the world that does not have a social system that cares for its adults when it comes to Social Security, as well as Medicaid, Medicare, that is paid for by all. And I just think that we should increase the taxes. If we just increase the tax rate on the wealthiest Americans back to what it was at the end of the Reagan administration, we would generate trillions of dollars over a multi-year span, hundreds of billions of dollars annually. So, some people will say, Mark, you said there was something wrong with Reagan did. I go, yeah, because even though I disagreed with some of the things in the Reagan administration, he sat down with Tip O'Neill, and they negotiated things. And as a result, we ended up at the end of the Clinton administration too with not having a deficit, because they also sat down and resolved these things. So I am all in favor of cutting these funding, but what's happening in a lot of areas is not based on abuse. It's just a wholesale cutting of programs to cut them. And why? Because they need to do a tax cut for the wealthiest Americans like this.
All right, moving on to Tyler D.
So thank you for coming here, and thanks for listening. I'm a resident of Kenmore currently, however, wow, this is a really bad microphone. So I do have a question. So for those who may not be unaware, I support patrol, are allowed to patrol essentially anywhere in Western New York. It is within their 100-mile patrol rule. And ICE has been deputizing local police departments to perform illegal raids against our immigrant communities. A local, well-respected and loved restaurant near me was recently raided, unfortunately, and destroying the livelihoods of the owners. So how does Erie County intend to protect law-abiding immigrants from being illegally trafficked and deported without proper process?
You bring up a good point in this due process. Because the Constitution in the Fifth Amendment talks about federal government shall not try to live like liberty without due process. It doesn't say citizens, it says person. It was a court technique. So it applies to everything. When it comes to what's going on, and I understand Oswego County have basically allowed the sheriffs to do that. It's not happening here. I'm unaware of the local law enforcement that that's happening. You do have a general rule that if the vice has a warrant for someone's arrest that's signed by a judge, that's legal. If they don't have a warrant, and they're just confiscating people, as you said, basically kidnapping them, and now they find themselves in jail, either Louisiana or worse, El Salvador. I mean, it's wrong. I saw Joe Rogan. Said yesterday. He was critical of this because he said if they can do it to these people now, who's to say a future administration doesn't do it to someone else because they don't like their political affiliation or where they're from? I mean, I'm Polish background, and I know how Polish were treated. And my grandfather told me when he was a kid, he was born in the 1920s, but they weren't treated very well. That's why all the Poles lived on the east side and eventually moved out to Chihuahua and moved out to Lancaster. Same with Italians. They were the scapegoats. They were the evil people. They were the evil horde from those that had been here before. And it's the same thing right now, where people are scapegoating others. And a lot of these people, most of these people that are being unaware of, that have been taken locally, are just law-abiding citizens who are paying taxes. We have a process. We have a process. And no matter what, we have a process, they are entitled to due process. Just like I'm entitled to due process, anyone else in this room is entitled to due process. And they're not getting due process. That's why the Supreme Court ordered the Trump administration in a 9-0 verdict to bring the individual back from El Salvador, which I'm sure the president was shocked about. Because if we do not uphold, I got it in my pocket because I carry it around, I'm a semi-reformed attorney, I still have my license, I don't practice. But, Constitution of the United States, it is the basis of our law. No individual is above the Constitution. We don't elect kings. We elect individuals. And this flag here is important because this flag represents this. And no matter all the people who fought in World War II, my grandfather, the greatest generation, they fought to uphold the democracy and constitutional republic that is the United States of America as representatives. We have not always been a perfect country. We fought a civil war to get rid of the original stain of slavery. We fought to deprive people of their rights just because of the color of their skin. But when we start making determinations that say this person is not entitled to due process because of who they are, then we don't have We're not the United States of America, the shining people that people want the country. So even if they came into the country and they're undocumented, a lot of people have documentation now because they've gone through the system, asylum seekers, they have numbers, they're assigned numbers. They still are entitled to due process. Because if they could do it to them, they could do it to anyone. And it's as simple as it. And you think, not today, it won't happen to me. Well, I think it was Mark Nemo, the Lutheran pastor, who said, I'm messing it up, but he said, I didn't stand for these individuals because in the end, I didn't stand for that group. I didn't stand for that group. And when it came to me, there was no one to stand.
Sir.
It's false. You can say whatever.
Sir. This is going to be our last question. I'm sorry if we didn't get you to it, but we got a 8 o'clock cutoff here. Our last comments or question from Jennifer B.
I asked if my lady, I had a new business with her not good. And it's not only pretty good, it's good stuff.
Is my going okay? Yes, good. So I
So I'm just gonna ask a quick question, we can follow up later. Can you help us figure out what the boom is in Lancaster? So whoever go to Facebook, it's a regular occurrence, we have a weird boom that occasionally happens in Lancaster, we don't know why. You said it's your last term, if you can help us figure it out, that would be great.
The sonic boom?
We don't know. It's just a boom that happens on occasion. We all go to Facebook and say, anyone else hear the boom? So if you can help us solve it, that'd be great.
That's not my team, that's the first I heard about it. I didn't know there was a boom.
Oh, yeah, if you Google search Lancaster, Google.
Is there any part, is it heard in one spot more than another? Okay, that's the first I heard of it. I never heard of boom myself. We'll look into it. All right. We'll look into, I'll have, it's 9 o'clock, we wanted to have it at 8:30, I'm glad we were on the stage because of, something with friends of the Lancaster House. I appreciate you all being here. As I said, as elected officials, we have responsibility to our bosses, people who, not only elected, people we represent. And no matter who they are, they should appear to talk to you, to be in there, to handle the questions. We do not have to agree on it. That's fine. We just have to understand that our goal should not be, some people are disagree, but other people want to destroy the other individuals because they disapprove of what they say or they disbelieve them. Our late great New York State Senator, Dan Beck, had a perfect quote, which is, everyone is entitled to his or her own opinion. They're not entitled to their own facts. And I'm presenting what the facts are when it comes to the county government. You don't have to agree with it, but those are the facts on the ground. That's what we do, and we will always be out there working for you, regardless of what you think on the political spectrum, because in the end, I work for you, and frankly, for you, everyone who's elected official works for the constituents, and hopefully, that you found something useful here, and I, in the end, appreciate everyone coming out, and thank you, because that just doesn't happen often, but it's something that should happen more often across the community. So thank you all very much.